to live by.
No illusions to live by.
I was watching a detective drama, and I had a few thoughts. I think there are three things I noticed something today. When someone trusts someone else, it can make them go on the wrong path, but trusting someone can also be the right answer. That's what I thought about writing case like crime stories. The criminals are one person, so truth is one. So with trust like a gamble, then there's one correct answer. But when I think more abstractly about the meaning of life or truth, people are choosing something they believe in. But in reality, like case like crimes, it is a gamble where nobody wins. But the difference from cases that believing itself can save someone. So, like crime cases, believing doesn't make someone wrong, and it makes case problem. But I will say it again. My idea is that there's no one truth. That's what I think. But this is a big problem because there's no truth. You cannot believe in anything while thinking there is no truth. While you are believing, you cannot notice there's no truth. While you are believing, there may be no problem. But when you realize that there's no truth in life, what happens then also is fine to believe for yourself, but if you put your son or daughter in that belief, or even in that religion, what will happen later? Something your own life could show. Also, this drama was a time slip drama, and it showed exactly what I was trying to say, going back to the past to save someone, but that person still committed a crime again. I think that is how it is. People regret the past and think who I had done that back then. Who I had chosen a different path, I might not be here now. To make it easy to understand, when you think of life like a map, it's not just a small change in shape. For some things like going abroad happened, it's not just that fact. Everything after that changed. So when you think, I should have gone to that school instead, who that because becomes real, everything else changed. Also, when you save someone's life and later they could you trouble, you might even think, why did I do that back then? But every moment like that, who I would know not done this, it would become that it's a chain of moments that, but people only say there are like 5 or 6 big moments in life, but every second and actually one this moment, because every result is made from past accumulation, even that one big failures are made from everything before it. Humans probably influence think in a way too big for the human brain to understand, but this is very hard to think about. What I'm talking about is a very abstract level of influence. No, it's relationship at solution level, but the social influence and that abstract level are two different. So I don't know if we should connect them. I don't like thinking like that. But anyway, I think everything's influenced a lot. Like even small changes in body temperature changes, organ action. So even physics or Buddhism, this views probably correct. And if the past changes, everything changes. The different good things that should not have happened happen, or bad things happen. It's not something our brain can measure. Future, past, and present. Especially present, we cannot judge good or bad situation. So humans get confused by that. But I wanna believe we can live without being controlled by that confusion. Also, I thought today again the good and bad action. Humans are not absolute, but there's a limit, like not causing harm, like illegal or not illegal. But even if something is not illegal, it is still a spectrum. There's a novel called Lanhash where a child dies and many kids are involved, like a tree falling. The owner who left a dog worst and the company that did not expect the tree, but we cannot say one clear cause. So even if something is not illegal, it doesn't mean there's no responsibility. So human systems are complex, and I don't mean to talk about harming people, but humans are all connected and influence each other. So very small thing can become big effect. But I don't want to say it's scary. I don't mean everything's connect. Human always separate things in their mind, like naming an object in a case. But in reality, it's just an object. But the human mind separates them. For event, it's the same, like saying this, cause that. But it may not be so simple. There were people who protested against cutting streets, people who just had leave their dog waste road management. None of them had bad intent, but still it created big problems. So trying to find one cause and run from it's not easy. When I was in a religion, I was told I could grow my soul from cause, but because it's not one thing, it's many, it's not countable in a simple way, it's close to infinite or at least too many to count, so we tried at first one cause like saying I got a cold because this, but for trauma or life events it is very hard. Also, when there's a problem and people cannot find because they sometimes say it's cured or good, and that is also how the human mind works. For example, a feeling tree causing death is called a cause, but in reality it's confident coincidence or science. But human brains can connect impressive event like thinking someone's looking at you and love psychology, and there's also confirmation bias where you correct bad thing sign for you feel something bad will happen, and that can lead to stress even accident. And I checked it and it was correct psychology, but still there are things not explained by that, and I still think about it. Also, I cannot accept using sayings from historical figure as a guide for life. I respect it. It looks cool, but if I really it, I feel like I lose myself. I avoid it. So keeping myself is harder for me. Also, I thought I might be very positive deep inside, even though I never think things will work out. But sometimes I feel I've been guided in life, not in a spiritual or occult way. And I also feel like I've been like a ghost for 7 years. People around me don't know what I'm doing, like I don't exist clearly. And then in a drama I watched, they use the word ghost, and I felt a strange connection, even if it's just coincidence, and I feel strange meaning and coincidence, and I think that's kind of positivity. It's strange, but maybe it's inside me. But at the same time, I don't think I can be described as simply positive or negative. Also, sometimes I notice later that something was strange at that time, but I didn't notice it then. Later, I think it was strange, but humans can't pay attention to every small change, so the brain ignores small signals. But later, it's reconstruct its fits with obvious, but at that time it was not connected. And then my case with environmental disorder, my past was not connected like a story, so I can suddenly remember trauma without context, while normal people connect to everything as a story, so regret becomes stronger. I think too much regret is not usual, because at that time you your own perception. Also, memories reliable can be restructured. And I also noticed that something good happen, I reinterpret past things as sign, like thinking that was also a chance, and I thought a lot. But school memories stay, like becoming a leader in a school event, or not being able to act well with teacher, or regretting how I behaved at regulation. And I also often think about food, like feeling while eating because it will end, and sometimes even small notice can become obsessive thought. And I also think my hometown is strange because it is new residential area with no history, and I think even people have a special point like numbers or 0 point, and I also lived in a cheap apartment once where there was a lot of noise at night, and I thought, but different people were living there. And I also wonder what I'm saying is meaning, because it's not a correct theory or discovery, but I still think even one person's voice has some meaning. And I think there's no absolute truth. So nothing is fully wrong, but acting without any judgment or wrong. And I think I don't want a celebration, but acting without a judgment also wrong. I think I don't want celebration, but I want a mental escape place, like quitting a club, but knowing you can quit makes it easier to continue. And I also think changing the past would change everything, including good bad outcomes. So there's no simple correct answer. Human values mostly based on pleasure, discomfort. And if I made a blog about my religious past, I think my life would collapse because emotion would become unstable. So I avoid big emotional action. Also, and I also think I have become like a memo person writing too much, but then I forget what I was talking about. And I also worry about small things like notice or temperature or closing no doors. And I think society, AI might change everything like jobs, medicine, relationships, even marriage may not be necessary. Humans might lose many systems. And I also think drama misleads people in stories, but reality is consciousness. Humans are the only species that built narrative assign intention. And I sometimes think human relationships are always heading toward destruction, even if they start well. They eventually break or distance themselves. Also, when I think about, sometimes I wonder why I cannot keep using belief-based saying from historical figures as a guide. It feels like it would be admirable, helpful, but for me, it feels like I would lose my own identity. I feel I rely on it, so I avoid it because that keeping my own self becomes harder than for other people. And I also that I might be very positive deep inside, not in the sense that I believe everything will be fine, because I never think that could, but more like that, something like that. Life is being guided somehow, even if I cannot explain it, because, and I am not talking about anything spiritual or occult, just a feeling that something is been leading me. And I also thought that for 7 years I have been I also thought that for 7 years I have been like a ghost. People from school, teachers, neighbors, relatives, they don't watch the drama, and it used the word ghost, and I was shocked. Even if it is just coincidence, I felt a strange connection to it. Even though I know it is just random chance, I still feel something maybe for coincidence, and I think I can still feel meaning while knowing it is just a chance. That might be a kinda strong positively, or maybe it is just strange. And I even feel uncomfortable about calling it positively. But I also think deep inside. And then I watched a drama and it used the word ghost and I was shocked. Even if it is just a coincidence, I felt a strange connection to it. And even though I know it is just a random chance, I still feel something meaningful or unconscious, and I think who I can self-feel meaning while knowing it's just a chance, but might be a kind of strong positivity, or maybe it is just strange, and I even feel uncomfortable about calling it positivity. But I also think deep inside there might be a kind of positive running under everything, even though on the surface I'm mostly negative, and I also noticed that sometimes earlier something was strange only after time was passed. Like at first I didn't notice anything, but later I look back and think that was clearly strange. But at that moment I didn't connect that dot, and I think this happened because the brain cannot always treat small changes as important, otherwise it would be overloaded. So it ignores them, but later it reconstruct the past and make it look like it was obvious. And in my case, I think it's even stronger because my past experience are not connected like a continuous story, like event are not linked in a clean chain, so memories can come back suddenly without context. Not normally people build their life as a narrative with beginning, middle, end, so they can always explain it as a story, but I don't have that strong connection. So when I look back, I could feel regret, like I should have noticed, but I also think too much regret. It's not usual because at that time I had only my perception at that moment, and there are also cases where memory itself is not stable, and it gets rewritten depending on later research. And I also noticed that when something good happens later, I start to interpret past events as if they were a sign or opportunity, even things I was thought were not important could become meaningful later. And I once thought were not important could become meaningful later, and I thought about many school memories today, like becoming a reader. And I thought about many school memories today, like becoming a leader in a school festival without planning it, and not being able to act well around teacher, and after graduation I regret not looked them in the eyes properly. And I also remember small social moments where I acted in ways I didn't intend, and I often keep thinking about these things even while eating. I feel sad because the meal will end, and even small sound from people around me can become obsessive thought in my mind. And I also thought about the place where I grew up, a new residential area with also no history, not like an old city with tradition or conflict, just now housed. And I thought about how even place can feel special at a certain point, like numbers or 0 point in a coordinate system. And I also remembered living alone in a cheap apartment near a busy area where there was loud music at night, and I thought about different kind of people living there. And I also wonder whether what I'm saying is any meaning at all, because it is not a clear theory or system, but I still feel that even one might person's voice might have meaning. Who someone listen to it, and I also think about since there is no absolute truth, nothing can be fully right or wrong. But at the same time, I think saying anything without any judgment is also not correct, and I feel like I do not want salvation, but I do I don't want some kind of mental place where I can escape, because without it, everything becomes too strict. And I also noticed that when I think about quitting something, not just knowing that I can quit, make it easier to continue. Like on school clubs, and I also think about how if I could change the past, it would not just change event, but everything connected to it, including good and bad outcomes. So there is no simple correct version of life. And I also think that human value systems are mostly based on simple pleasure and discomfort. And I also thought that if I acted on strong emotions, like anger, for example, writing a blog about my past religion experience, my life would probably become unstable, because emotional change lead to behavior change, and I can somehow predict that kind of instability in my life. So I avoid extreme action, and I also noticed that I have become someone who keeps too many notes, like a memo person, but after a few days I forgot what I was trying to say. And I also worry about small things like whether I should close draw clearly, because of misunderstanding. And I also thought about how society might change with AI like jobs, medicine, relationships, even marriage might become unnecessary. And I think this could break the current systems where money and care give power. And I also think about how humans often build stories in their mind, even when reality is just coincidence, and people assume intention where there's no. And I sometimes feel that humans relationships tend to move toward breaking apart, even if they start with closeness. And I often wonder why people stay close at all if separations always coming later. Also, I once thought that human relationships tend to move toward this direction, even when people are very close at the beginning, they eventually fight or drift apart. And I sometimes wondered why people even try to stay close if that outcome common. And I also thought that even love relationships, people become distant over time. So I kept questioning that structure at that time. Same time, I was watching a detective drama, and I noticed something again. Humans always try to create a story from event and drama. There are many misdirection, but in real life, two people connect random event and build a narrative, like thinking someone said something with bad intention, even if it might not be true. And I think this is kind of human nature, because humans are the only being that interpret intention behind action and go beyond what is visible. They try to predict what will happen next from this intention, and this creates complicated human relationship, and I find it difficult to fully understand that system. And I also remember thinking once that humans always move towards this direction and relationship, even if there's no extreme event, just small distance build up, connection weakens. And I could not understand why people still value relationship under that condition. And I also think about how every event is made from many conditions, like place, time, environment, mental state, and if any that change, the result becomes different. So one event is not independent, but handle a condition. For example, for someone first something that's failure connect to later relationship skills and new opportunity. So if you change the past, you lose not only the failure but also everything that came after it, both good and bad. And I think about how even small emotional reaction can change behavior, and that behavior change is a future chain event. So life is continue chain of condition. And I also thought that people sometimes misunderstand their past self, like thinking I should have noticed that back then, but at the time they were not able to see it because their perception was different. And I also think that memories reconstruct the later based outcomes. So it's become more like a story than actual recording. And I also noticed that when I was younger, I had experience where I acted in ways I did not intend, especially in school situations like leadership roles or talking with teachers. And I later regretted this moment, but at that time I did not understand how important they were. I also think that even small moments like eating food were emotionally connected, like feeling sadness when sometimes something ends, and even small noise can become mental triggers. And I also thought about how I grew up in a new residential residential area with no long history, and I felt that even place can have a kind of structure like coordinate where certain point feel special even without meanings. And I nervous at night, and I imagine the lives of people there. And I also keep questioning whether what I'm saying has any real meaning or whether it is just a random thought. But I still feel that even one person's experience might matter if it is shared. And I also think that there's no absolute truth, so nothing can be free, correct or incorrect. But at the same time, I also think that everything's accepted without judgment is also becomes instable. And I also think that I do not want final salvation or fixed answer, but I want a mental place where I can temporarily escape. And I also noticed that just knowing I can quit something make it easier to continue it, like a club activity. And I also think that if the past could be changed, it would change everything connected to it, including both positive and negative outcomes. So there's no single correct version of life. And I also think that human value is mostly based on simple pleasure and discomfort. And I also think that if I act based on strong emotion like anger, my life will become unstable because emotional change leads to behavioral oral changes, and then life structure changes. And I can somehow predict that instability in myself, so I avoid extreme action. And I also notice that I have become someone who writes many notes but then forgets the meaning after some times. And I also worry about small daily things like noise and doors or misunderstanding. And I also think that AI and technology may change the society completely, including jobs, medicine, relationship. even marriage, and I also think that humans often build stories even when reality is just coincidence. And I also think human relationships often even if they start strongly, and I continue to question when people still seek connection, knowing that outcome.